Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO. Today I am here with Komal Kaur. Welcome, Komal.
Thank you.
So, Komal, where are you? It's two. I've said good morning and good afternoon because it's early hours. Well, not early hours, but it's early morning here in Melbourne, and it is 2 p.m. in.
In Kelowna, BC, Canada.
Yeah, cool. Oh, I love Canada. I've lived in Canada before, and I
Yeah,
know you've
nice. Where
been.
about?
Oh, I was in Whistler. I did a couple of seasons. I did the whole, snowboarding seasons back in the day, 2000, years and years ago.
Nice, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you've been to Sydney as well, haven't you?
I have. I was living in Sydney for about a year, and I didn't really go to a few. I went to a few other places, but not many. But Sydney was my home. I do miss it.
Yeah, everyone goes to Sydney. So, Kamal, tell me a little bit about you and tell me what you're up to today.
Yeah, of course. So, I'm originally from England. I was born and raised in England. I started working roughly, I think it was 2014, just jumped into a customer service role. And at that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just finding my feet. And then once I kind of, understood what the workforce looks like, I really started to dig deep into what I wanted to do and what I like doing, and then I realized that it was sales, client services and sales. So then I moved on to a sales position, and honestly, as time went on, I always stuck to sales, leadership, and client services. That was the main career path that I really went into. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, my favorite position was when I was at DHL
Oh,
in the
okay.
UK. Yeah, I worked as an executive assistant. So what my role was, I was really looking after VIP shipments. So we actually looked after shipments for Rihanna, Kanye,
Oh,
all of the
wow.
big names. Yeah, it was fun. We didn't get to meet them, of course, but it was a lot of fun just kind of seeing those names on the packages. And my role was more computer based. It wasn't in the warehouse. So I was upstairs in the office just dealing with all the reports, the data, and just making sure everything was going well. We will jump into AI, I know, but I do want to mention that AI was not a thing. Well, I didn't know anything about
No.
AI. Didn't hear anything. I don't even think it existed at that time. So everything was done manually. Everything was, that was the norm. So it didn't seem like we were doing anything the long way, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I moved from DHL was the last position I had before I moved to Sydney. I made the big move because I got married.
Oh,
And yeah, I moved for my husband. He was in Sydney at the time.
yeah.
And I didn't really want to do too much work. It was more of a, let's enjoy Sydney, let's enjoy Australia,
Yeah.
which I did. I did work in sales though when I did go to Sydney, a company called Wyndham. And
Okay.
what they did was they worked with memberships and making sure that people are signed up. If they're signed up, they have the correct membership and everything's running smoothly for them. Again, it was sales and it was a self-employed role where I would just gain commission from that. So
Yeah.
I think from moving different countries, like going from England to Australia, even though England and Australia, they are pretty similar, but they're still very different.
Mm.
Learned a crazy amount, a crazy amount. The people, the professional life, it was a whole new world for me. But it was very interesting, of course. And then finally, I decided to move to Canada. I came to Kelowna. I have no idea why. I just got myself here and I never left Kelowna. And this was the first place that I came to.
Yeah, 'cause where's Kelowna? I don't know where, that's really bad of me, but where is it exactly?
So it's in British Columbia. It's the Okanagan. If you Google it, it is a very famous and popular spot here in BC. It is a tourist spot. Actually, a lot of people do travel to Kelowna, and I didn't know that at the time. Actually, it's quite funny. I came here, and the weather is absolutely amazing during the summertime, and even
Yeah.
in the winter, it
Yeah.
doesn't really get too cold.
Yeah.
But you should come visit us. It's
Yeah.
very nice here. It is.
Yeah. Lots of lakes.
Um,
Lots of lakes. Yeah. And
Lots of lakes and
snow.
hiking trails.
Yeah. No, and no snow in the winter.
No, but not as much as other places.
Yeah.
It's really,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
So
I
you've
like
had
it that way.
Yeah, so you've had quite the fascinating career, and it's always been centered around sales and marketing. And you could argue it was more analog, and now kind of with this rapid pace of AI, it's quite interesting the pivot or the what you've how you've had to adapt. And we were talking previous just briefly around you're in this really interesting spin in terms of you're on the cusp of, you're not a Gen Z, but you're not a millennial. So you're kind of this like, you're almost like a middle child, if you like, right? In terms of, and I'm a middle child. So I know what
I'm actually a middle child.
yeah, right. So you know what the middle child is, sometimes
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, so you kind of fit in, you kind of make it work. You always do. And so, it's interesting that there's such a like generational like group of leaders in terms of, there's the boomers and then there's the younger generations, the alpha and the Gen Zs. And so talk to me a little bit about that and how that's given you the ability in that, Gen Z slash millennial middle child, and talk to me a little bit about that and how you kind of fell into the AI component with what you're doing now.
Yeah, of course. So I think it definitely has been and will be a learning curve, a really big learning curve. It's pretty steep actually. But I'm luckily I'm pretty good at learning and I'm quite quick at learning as well. So that helps me. That's in my favor. But when I first started off with, learning about AI, I refused to use it, if I'm being honest. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't really trust it. And luckily for me, my brother, he's 3 years younger than me. And he was like, why are you not using AI? And I told him, well, I don't know what it is. I don't trust it. So no, like that's no, 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 I'm not
Yeah.
doing it. And he's like, just give it a try. And so we sat together and he was using it. And I tried to download ChatGPT actually onto my phone. And I started to use it and I really started to like it actually. And I said to him, actually, this is quite easy. It's not as hard as I thought it would be. And that was just the chat tool. It wasn't anything too crazy at that point. Um, so for me, going from, not knowing what AI is, never using AI and just trying it out, I was still a little bit skeptical. I wasn't too sure if this is something that I want to be using on a more day-to-day basis, you could say. So I used it once or twice here and there, and I just didn't really bother to use it. And then I would say around a couple of years later, when I really started to see a lot more about AI. I saw ads, coming on, after during YouTube videos. And I was just like, no, go away. I don't want this. So I was a little bit, again, I was hesitant, to really get myself into AI.
And was that
But
fears? Was that a fear thing going on for you? Like, what was it?
yeah, I definitely think it was a fear thing because, AI, robots, I wasn't too sure what to believe. Like, what's happening with the world, it's going way too quick. But actually, when you really look into it, it can be very, very, and it is very, very helpful.
Mm.
And it's very beneficial if it's used the correct way. I think there's a lot of argument with AI, and I definitely with the baby boomers, they don't really like to use AI, and nothing against them. Fair enough. It's a different time that they, were born and raised. But if you really try to dig deep with AI, I think it has a lot to offer us.
Mm.
And I think we've got so much more to learn from it. At this point as well. I'm not an expert at all. I wish I was, but I definitely am not. But there's so many different websites you can incorporate. For example, I do sales right now. To find new leads on a day-to-day basis, we use AI. And how we use that is we prompt the AI to find specific companies, for example. And I only want, I don't know, manufacturing companies in this state with this many employees, and it gives you exactly what you want.
Yeah, it's
Obviously, saying
fascinating.
that
Yeah.
yeah, 100%, it definitely is fascinating. But saying that, I think there are a few bugs here and there that can be fixed. But I think that's with anything that's new. And I think it's just trial and error. You just learn from the mistakes and you make a better version of an app, for example.
Mm. And so what barriers do you find with regards to in the organization you're in when it comes to, obviously the different generations? and you're talking
Mhm.
about that you use it, are you finding that adapting it, people that are taking it on board and it like from a boomer's perspective, do you feel like there's almost like two parts to the business where there's people embracing it and then there's others that aren't, and yet they're leaders, or like is there a bit of a block between what the like leaders, baby boomers, if you like, of are, kind of wanting you to focus on versus what you guys are focusing on, or are you allowed to do whatever you want with AI? Like, how does it work if there's a bit of resistance towards it from an older generation?
Yeah, of course. I think with the business that I'm with at the moment, there's not really any resistance. We're very AI focused, and a lot of our clients that we speak to on a day-to-day basis, they are very AI driven as well. I think just the one-off would be a little, hesitant to use AI. So we're not really having any pushback with that, which is really nice to see. And the company that I'm with right now, they are pretty much the younger side of the generation. I think I might be one of the youngest, but they are more on the younger side than, on the baby boomer side. Um, we do have a few different employees across Canada. So I'm not too sure how the other offices are really integrating AI, but with our office, it's definitely a positive.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing anything like that at all.
Yeah, fascinating. And what about clients? Like, how does it work with clients? Because you're in customer service, right? Like, if you're using this as a tool and it's obviously enabling so much productivity and to kind of get through a lot more work than probably previously, do you have any resistance from clients, in terms of, or you don't really need to explain to them how you're using it and what you're doing with it? Like, how does that work from a client customer service level?
Yeah, so it's definitely the second option that you gave there. We don't really need to discuss that with them. If they ever ask, like, hey, how do you find your leads? And we're happy to discuss without giving too much information, of course, that we are using AI to make sure that we are finding the correct buyers for your business or the correct sellers that we are looking for in the right you could say in the right department or whatever if they're in manufacturing, industrial, B2B, whatever they are doing, we have all of those certain processes set up in place, and then we do describe that to them. But for the most part, honestly, none of our clients are asking that as a question. Surprisingly, actually, that's a really good question. And you would think that, hey, what are you doing with AI? What do you think
Yeah,
about
what's your
AI? But I've
approach?
personally not had that.
Yeah, that's
Touch
good.
wood. Not
Yeah.
yet, anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what do you think the future looks like with AI coming in thick and fast into business? Do you think that it will change your role going forward? Do you ever get concerned that you may not have a role? Like, what's your view on that? And does that mean then you also have to pivot or reshape what your career trajectory looks like? You talked a bit about upskilling and, you were self-teaching yourself around AI before you got into it. But what's your view on that? And also, what's your view on that from a boomer's perspective as well? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is a little bit of a concern for, the boomer perspective. I do get a little worried that maybe, if you're not really learning how to use AI, don't get me wrong, I think for a very long time, we will still have a lot of roles without AI.
Mm.
Um, but that's just my opinion. It could definitely not be like that as well. But
I think there will be as well.
yeah, I feel like there will be for a while, but I think if we try to really learn AI, and honestly, if you sit down and learn anything, our minds are so powerful, we are able to put that effort in. We will learn that, particular skill, and that's what I truly believe.
Mm.
So I think for people like me, if we are really trying to put that time out, it might take longer than other people, like the younger generation, but we will get there maybe a week later than somebody else will. But I think if we put that effort, definitely put that effort in, we will be more, I think we will have a bigger chance of being in the workforce.
Mm.
And again, I don't think it's going anywhere that quick, but I think it's very important for everyone to embrace AI in a positive way and stay away from obviously some of the negative comments or the negative aspects of AI.
Yeah, yeah, I love that question. I love that answer, I should say. Question. I asked that question. Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about it that way because what's then your view on, I guess for me, I look at AI and I look at what you're doing, and I still feel like from a customer and sales perspective, and from what my background is and what I do now, is that client relationships are the key, and you need that human connection, and you'll always need that human connection when you're working with people. And so for me, AI can it can supercharge productivity, etc. But it's still a machine at the end of the day. And so there's nothing greater than, that human connection, that interaction, that chemistry. And I think that goes without saying with leaders as well. And, like yourself, people who are intuitive, empathetic, clear and kind. But that's not something, yes, as much as AI is getting smarter and smarter by the day, it scares me some days where I'm just like, whoa, you are so on point today. But I still think there's an aspect of it will never beat the human in us. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think 100% you're correct when you say that. I think a lot of the Gen Z, I think they are struggling to really understand that there is something that is still humanly possible without AI. And it's not any fault of theirs at all. It's just the generation that they have been born and raised in. But I think it's very, very important to have a good balance of both. And I definitely try to do that. I'm a people person. I love to talk. I love to make connections. I make it my utmost priority to get out of my house, away from my computer, away from my phone, and speak to people and connect with people. And if you can't do that, in person, there's always, now we have Zoom, right? We have Teams, especially after COVID. It's a big thing and it's a very positive thing. If you think about it like this, we are connecting right now. You're in
I know,
Australia, I'm in
other side of the
Canada.
world. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is so beautiful to see. And I think if we really understand that there's two sides to the story, we can do amazing things. And it's just about finding that right balance. I'm a
Yeah.
Libra, by the way, so I'm all about
Yeah,
balance.
I was about to say I'm a Leo, so I'm all about that. Get the main out every now and again. You made a point there that I'm keen to tap into, which was around that Gen Z aren't necessarily seeing what's humanly possible with AI. They're almost like all in on AI. What do you mean by that? What aren't they seeing that we're seeing?
Yeah, I think what I've noticed with the younger generation, oh my God, I'm talking like I'm 50 or something. It does, I don't know. I think I've gained a lot of wisdom over the last few years. I think 30s are the best age to be.
Yeah, well, your
But
20s are just like you think you've got the world's biggest problems, but your 30s,
yeah.
wait till you hit your 40s, wait till you hit,
Oh my God.
like yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, I know. I think yeah, definitely with the younger generation, what I'm seeing is they are way too focused on, their phones, their tablets, their laptops. And I've seen this, in on bus stops, at school, college, even, at work. They're just very much focused on their electronic devices. And I think this is just pulling a little bit away from AI. And I know that AI does come into play with that. They must be using AI as well because they probably are using it before I started using it for sure. And I think the dangerous thing is they're just focusing on that so much that they're forgetting there's other people around them. And that's pretty scary and pretty sad to see that there's not really a connection. And that's not with everyone, of course. That's with certain people. Maybe, it's their lifestyle. Fair enough. That's their way of dealing with it. But I think it's very important for us, to educate the younger generation that, hey, AI is very important. Technology is very important as long as you are using it the correct way and as long as you are creating that balance and are getting out a little bit as well and making connections with other people face to face, speaking to the person.
Yeah.
And you're not just like in your phone like this and 100 people go by you and you don't even know what just happened the
Yeah,
last 10 minutes.
I
A
could not
billion.
I could not agree more. And I look at my nieces and my nephew, and they've been brought up with tech. They've been brought up with phones. Have they touched AI yet? I'm not sure. But it's interesting. I was on the tram. I went to an exhibition on Friday afternoon with Mum, and we're on the tram on the way home. I said to Mum, "Look at everybody," and it was just like this, like everyone was like that, which it made me sad, like looking at it because I'm sure I do it at times as well. But it made me feel a bit sad in terms of that, like we have loneliness is a huge epidemic in the world, and COVID caused a lot of it. And yet we're so lonely because we've got these little devices that we're using that we're just being absorbed and consumed by. And we're kind of, taking those dopamine hits because, whether it's socials or whatever we're on. But there's no looking up. There's, like you say, there's no interacting, there's no connecting. And like the world's just passing you by, and yet you're not even like looking around and getting, for me, what I call that fresh perspective. So it's almost like our brains, you talked about our mind has this amazing capability to learn. But I fear that our minds are being so over I guess overwhelmed with information. There's no ability to kind of subtract any, and this is what I work with on with my clients. It's subtracting all that noise, subtracting it out to get the clarity, to get the intuition, to be
Mhm.
able to, function the way you're meant to be functioning, and that's at your optimal state.
Yeah.
And you can't access, what is that flow state when you're constantly having your mind bombarded with information. And so that's what goes on for me. It's the lack of connection. You're not interacting with humans, but you're
Yeah.
also not helping your brain. And there was I reposted something on Instagram the other day, or not Instagram, on LinkedIn the other day about this. And because it was just showing the damage that it's doing to your brain, versus going outside and what you're talking about, where you step away from your devices and you go out and go for a walk in nature, that sort of thing, and what the difference that does to your brain. What's your view on all of that?
I am very, oh God, I can get into this for days. So I feel very, very strongly about this. I am very passionate about getting into going into nature and getting away from the devices. I didn't used to be actually. I would say I was pretty much into my phone a lot of the time a couple of years back. But I really started to dig deep and do some self-care and looking after my mind, my body, my health. And since then, I tried putting my phone down, when I'm, if I'm sitting somewhere, waiting for the bus, for example. Or, if I'm in the mall, I'm waiting for a friend. I would normally just go onto my phone, like what else do you have to do? You just go on your phone, you go on Instagram, you start checking things that you don't even need to check, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. But you're there, you're scrolling, and then it's endless scrolling, or even at home. And then I really just thought to myself, what am I doing? And sometimes a few hours would pass by and I haven't done anything with my life. And this is me talking like 3 years ago. And then what I started to practice was to put my phone down. And as awkward as that may be, looking around and just people might think that you're staring at them, but that's okay. It's okay. We'll get through the awkwardness. So I started doing that. I started looking around and I tell you, B, that the amount that you will notice when you do that, the amazing sights that you see and how much you'll learn just getting out of your phone. A funny story, actually. I was looking outside the window and I wasn't using my phone on my break time. And I just saw like two seagulls and they're like fighting and they're trying to like get food. And I was like, this is more interesting than anything on Instagram right now. It was just so
Yeah, it's nature.
refreshing.
Yeah,
It's nature, exactly. And then, once you really, it takes time. Honestly, it does take time to get out of that habit because we're so used to, coming home from a long day, sitting, parking our bums on the couch and putting the TV on and just sitting there for hours eating food. And you don't even know what you ate. Like 10 minutes later, like, what just happened? What did I just eat? I'm hungry again, you know? And it's all these little things that we don't realize become a very unhealthy habit or habits.
yeah,
And I think that's why I feel very strong because it took me to a place where I didn't really want to be. And I don't really normally discuss that too often, but I'm happily, saying that today that I was at a place where I didn't want to be. And now I'm at a place where I'm so happy. I'm in love with my life. I'm in love with everything and everyone around me because I've, balanced that amount of time that I'm using, my phone or my laptop or anything that I'm doing with technology. Even the TV, for example, like the TV all day, if I'm at home, it's not going on. It's not happening.
yeah, I've never.
Especially in the summertime, it's not happening.
Yeah, funnily enough, it was in Canada that, I lived with a couple of DJs at the time and we just had decks going all day or every night, day and night. We didn't have a TV. And ever since then, and that was like, I was in my early 20s, I've never really been a massive TV person. So it's just the radio for me. Having music playing is way more for me. But I love hearing that. And I guess what a, kind of kudos to you for actually going, I'm unhappy. I've got to change something. I have to change a habit or a behavior. And kind of learning what it is from a self-awareness perspective that was making you unhappy to then kind of make the shift and change those patterns, if you like, and behaviors. How would you, like, do you influence, like, do you talk to the younger ones at work around your own personally lived experience and kind of without coming across like you're lecturing them, but almost kind of trying to coach them to don't do what you did?
Yeah, actually, that's funny you say that because I have been hosting events where I am speaking to the younger generation about self-care and motivation, how to get yourself out of that little bubble and, move forward with your life and really do something about that. Be the real you because the more you spend time on your phone or your laptop and you don't really understand what your heart feels like, what your mind feels like, because let's be real, when you're watching something constantly, you're feeling exactly what you're watching. That's what you're becoming. That's who you're becoming as
Mm.
a person. So that's what I really like to teach. And honestly, for me, I try to word it in such a way where it's coming from, hey, I've been there. I feel exactly what you're doing. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just that you have been born and raised in an environment that allows this and makes you feel comfortable around this. But hey, guess what? You can move out of that and do this, but have both things going at the same time. Why don't you give it a try and see how you feel? And for the most part, most of the people that I've said that to, they've tried doing it, and it's really, really beautiful to hear and see, the response that I get from that, saying to me that, hey, Kamal, you've been such a great inspiration in my life, and I tried doing this and it really did help actually. And it's the smallest things like, hey, you know what? You've used your phone for like 10, 15 minutes. Put your phone down, leave it inside of the house, leave your house. If someone needs you, they'll call you and they can wait.
Yeah.
It's most of the time, no one needs us.
Yeah,
Let's be
no,
real.
no, totally.
Um,
I know. And exactly. What a gift, Kamal. What a gift that you're giving to others. And, you tapped in on lived experiences. I'm the same with my lived experience from burnout and, working like a maniac for so long. And now being able to give that gift to others in terms of you can
mhm.
do that. You can do that. But what will happen is this. But if you choose to actually notice and know when you're hitting those points, try this. And you've done it. You're that lived experience. And I think that no matter what textbook, what AI, no whatever, a lived experience is so much more I guess just understanding and empathizing with the situation because you've lived it, you've been it, and you're almost like you've gone from this to this. And that's not to say also that you have those little habits where you might fall back into them on a day. Like you probably have days where you're like, shit, I've been on my phone way too much, or I've had way too much tech today. And that happens to me at times too. Like I say that to my clients again, like, it's no day is the same. Some days you'll have a survival day, other days you'll have a day where you're optimally thriving. But
Mhm.
as long as you're aware that you notice when you're falling back into your old habits, that's when you can actually make the difference.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think being aware of, your presence and aware of, what's around you, other people's presence or just your surroundings in general, that's very important. And I think, honestly, that does come with time and a lot of practice. And yes, you are correct that we do go back into those habits. And you know what? Sometimes that's okay. For a limited period of time, that's okay. Sometimes we just need a break from looking after ourselves because that can be draining too. And I think people don't really focus on that because you're just constantly like, oh no, I need to heal my mind. I need to heal my brain. I need to do this. I need to do that. But that's you actually stressing about healing yourself. So then what's the point? What if, going on your phone for 30 minutes or 45 minutes and watching something that you find funny? Like, what if you want to watch something like a cartoon or animation, or you want to watch a movie? That's okay. That is a way of your body telling you, your mind telling you that actually, you know what? I'm done with the walks. I just want to watch a movie. So let me watch a movie.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, what would be your final words of wisdom for all generations, knowing everything we've talked about, but most importantly, probably the last bit of our conversation around, yeah, self-care and knowing that we are in the hugest change in the world right now. It's rapid, right? There's so much going on, and who knows what AI will look like in 12 months' time. What would be your biggest, yeah, wise word? Well, your wise words for words of wisdom, um,
Yeah, you
for
you got it.
everyone.
Awesome. Um, Honestly, what I would say, from my experience is just put your phone down every single day. Put your phone down for at least 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. And those 10 minutes will go by so fast and you're just like, oh, I didn't even put my phone down. It will just feel like, I didn't do that. So that's definitely one thing that I would say. The other thing that's very, very, very important, and I can't stress this enough, is we need to read books. I don't know if you can see, I have a little bit of a
Yeah,
collection
I've got a
here.
whole bookshelf out there as well. I'm the same.
Yeah.
Hard
Yeah.
copy books, not on the.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you so much right now. I think, yeah, audiobooks, it's perfect for if you're on the go, if you're really, busy. But I think even with that being said, being busy is good, but you do need to take time out to read a hard copy book because it feels different in your hand, first of all. When you're reading it, you will feel different. And otherwise, when let's say, for example, you're listening to a podcast, you're still on the phone. You're still using your phone or you're still using a tablet. You're still using a Kindle, for example. I don't like Kindles, by the way. Just
I've got a
saying.
Kindle. I do. I don't
I
mind it,
refuse.
but
Okay, okay.
I love a hard book. I do love a hard book.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. Like, I don't hate them, but I rather read a book from a hard copy.
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very important. Reading books. I love reading books, myself. And it just takes you to a different world.
Yeah.
And it's not that kind of a world where you kind of see Instagram or you see reels and you're on TikTok, you're just scrolling. That's another thing. I just removed TikTok off my phone completely. It doesn't even exist for the last like 5 years of my life. It's not on my phone. I have Instagram, but that's for promoting my work and it's not for scrolling whatsoever.
Mm.
So I think just really training your mind to do other things, become active. The more you become active, physically active, that's actually going to help you with moving away from those things because you're not using your phone while you're active. So
No.
it's these little tiny habits. It's not really one big thing that you need to change. What I like to tell people is it's these little habits. that make the big change at the end.
I agree. The
That's
one
very
percenters, the one percenters. Okay, thank you. And one last question. What is a book that you would recommend reading right now to
the
take your
5
mind somewhere different?
Yeah, I definitely the 5 a.m. club. That is my boss now, the CEO of the company. Hats off to her. She has changed my life with that book. She actually gifted that to me, so thank you. Since I've been reading that, it has changed. It's a full-on mind shift. So anyone who wants to
Right there.
buy the first book, yeah, please read it,
I'm
B,
gonna
and
write
let
it
me know.
down.
Yeah, awesome. Anyone who reads that book, I promise you, your mind, if you really read and study that book, your mind is going to be in a complete different, it's just a different feeling.
Yeah.
And I promise you, you'll enjoy it.
Love it. Scott, what a
Yeah.
shift we've had in our conversation. We went full AI, full like sales, customer marketing, now into more this holistic space and place, which is what I'm all about, optimally thriving, being connected from within. It's not, it's those little steps day in, day out. And it's okay to have days where you don't make the step forward, but as long as you become aware of bouncing forward. Thank you so
Mhm.
much, Kamal. And I love your two pieces of advice for everyone. That is to just turn off your phone or not have your phone for at least 10 minutes of the day and read a book. Where can we
Mhm.
find out more about you? You mentioned you're on Instagram. Where is
Mhm.
best to look you up and see what you're doing?
Yeah, of course. Definitely LinkedIn is my main go-to. I love LinkedIn. So it's Komal Kaur, and I'm sure you'll
Yeah,
put a little tag.
yeah, I
Yeah,
will.
yeah. So everyone can find me on there, and I am very, very approachable. Please go ahead and shout out to me if you have any questions, any concerns. Just message me. I'll message you. It might not be straight away, but I will message you back.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you so much. Well, what are you going to do
Thank
this
you.
afternoon in terms of, are you going to do something self-caring for a Sunday afternoon?
I am. The sun's out, so I'm actually literally just gonna go for a walk right now after this. So
Love it. Okay, well, enjoy that. I'm about to start my day, but thank you so much and enjoy that walk of yours.
yeah, thank you so much, B. Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.
You too.